Jason's heart raced as he watched Olivia step into the wedding, not the broken ex he expected, but a vision of strength, confident, radiant, with 2 children in tow. His mind reeled. Those kids, were they his? The room went silent as the truth slammed into him like a freight train. What had he done? The woman he thought was defeated was now standing there, ready to expose everything. And those children. They had his eyes. The sound of the champagne cork popping echoed through the grand ballroom, followed by the soft murmur of well-dressed guests. In the distance, the soft flicker of candlelight bounced off the gilded walls, casting a golden glow over the crowd. The air was filled with excitement, anticipation, but for Jason, it was suffocating. He stood at the altar, wearing a crisp, immaculate tuxedo, his back straight as he stared ahead at his bride-to-be Mia, a vision of beauty and grace. Everything was perfect, everything he had planned for. And then, the door swung open. All heads turned. The room fell silent. There she was. Olivia. His ex-wife. The woman he had humiliated, abandoned, and dragged through the mud. The woman he had invited to his wedding only to expose her failure, to show everyone how far she had fallen. He had expected her to show up looking pathetic, maybe even pleading, like she had before. Instead, she arrived in a stretch limousine, the sleek black vehicle pulling up in front of the venue with a low purr. The door opened, and Olivia stepped out in a gown of deep sapphire that shimmered in the late afternoon light. She didn't look like the broken woman he remembered. No. She was confident, poised, and radiant. But it wasn't just her that caught everyone's attention. 2 small children tumbled out of the limo after her, their laughter echoing in the air. Twins. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now back to the story. Jason's heart skipped a beat. The children had his eyes. He felt his throat tighten as Olivia walked down the aisle, ignoring the stares, the whispers, the silent judgment from the guests. She was here not to beg for redemption, not to apologize for the broken marriage, but to show him, and everyone else, just how wrong he had been. And just how far she had come. Have you ever been so sure about someone's failure that their success completely blindsided you? What do you think Jason's reaction will be when he realizes what Olivia has become? Let me know in the comments. Jason stood frozen for a moment, his eyes locked on Olivia as she made her way down the aisle. The chatter around him seemed to fade into a distant hum, as if the world was holding its breath. He hadn't expected this. He hadn't expected her to show up looking like she belonged in the pages of a magazine. He hadn't expected her to bring children, to look like she was the one with the perfect life now. His mind raced back to their past, their marriage, their breakup. A marriage that had started with so much promise. He had been ambitious, driven by success, and she, a kind-hearted, devoted woman who had supported him every step of the way. Together, they had been the perfect couple in the eyes of their friends and family. They had even dreamt of a future filled with their own little family. But then came the cracks. Jason had risen to success, building his own company. The more he achieved, the more he focused on his career, and the more distant he became from Olivia. He started resenting her for being the anchor that held him back from truly succeeding, from chasing his ambitions without guilt. She was too settled, too content. She didn't push him to reach for more like Mia did. Mia, the beautiful, driven woman he was about to marry now. Olivia had tried to keep their family together, but when Jason started questioning their relationship, when he grew cold and distant, she fought back. It was too late. The damage had been done. Their love faded like smoke in the wind. Olivia had pleaded with him, begged him not to end their marriage, but he had already made up his mind. When the divorce was finalized, he had moved on quickly. He had found comfort in Mia, who was everything Olivia was not, sharp, successful, and ambitious. They made the perfect power couple, and Jason had believed that he could finally have everything he wanted. Meanwhile, Olivia had been left with nothing. At least, that's what he had thought. The limo door slammed shut behind Olivia as she took her seat in the back of the room, her eyes scanning the crowd. Jason could see her steady gaze, confident, almost indifferent to the stares she was receiving from the guests. But deep down, he could feel the stirrings of something inside him, something that pulled at his chest. His mind flashed back to those early years, the warmth of her smile, the quiet moments they had shared before the world had turned cold. But no time for nostalgia. Mia leaned closer, her voice soft and soothing, snapping him back to the present. "Don't worry about her. She's just trying to make a scene," Mia whispered, squeezing his arm in reassurance. Jason nodded, trying to shake off the unease that had settled in his stomach. He couldn't let Olivia ruin his moment. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of his life, and Mia was everything he needed now. He had made the right choice, hadn't he? He was doing this for himself, for his future. And then, just when he thought things might calm down, a soft voice from behind interrupted his thoughts. "Jason, are those your children?" Jason turned sharply, his heart pounding. A woman in a gold dress had stepped up beside him, her eyes wide with shock. Olivia was on the move again, walking toward the back of the room with the twins, who were now holding her hands. His gaze locked onto the small faces of the children, the realization hitting him like a thunderbolt. They had his eyes. The woman in gold was no stranger. She was the sister of one of his closest business partners, and she had been at the table when he had signed the papers for his new life. Jason knew that she had been around when Olivia had been struggling, when she'd been left to fend for herself and try to rebuild her life. But he had never heard of her being here, at his wedding with children. Mia noticed his frozen expression and followed his gaze. Her eyes narrowed as she stared at the twins, then shifted her gaze to Jason. "What is it?" she asked, voice tinged with annoyance. Jason swallowed, forcing the words out of his mouth, though they felt like a confession, a hidden truth he had buried for so long. "Those children, they look like me." His mind raced back to when Olivia had left, back to when she had said that she would move on and rebuild her life. He never imagined she would be raising his children without him. And yet, here they were. Olivia wasn't just the ex-wife who had been left in the dust. She had built a life, one he had never known about. And the revelation that he had children he had never met, never known existed, was like a slap in the face. As Olivia reached the back of the room, she turned toward him, her eyes locking with his for just a moment. The corners of her lips curled slightly, but it wasn't the bitter smile of someone seeking revenge. It was something else, something more grounded, more peaceful. And it shook him. What do you think Olivia's intentions are by showing up with the twins at Jason's wedding? Is she looking for revenge, or is there something more at play here? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for the approval. Let's continue with Act 3, Inciting Incident, where the moment of conflict begins to fully unfold. The tension rises as secrets start to surface, and the stakes get higher. Jason barely had time to process the shock of seeing the children before the moment he dreaded most arrived. His father, George, took a step forward, his voice booming across the room. "Jason, my boy, is everything all right?" Jason blinked, struggling to pull himself back into the present. His father's words cut through the haze of his thoughts, but the room was now full of whispers. He could feel the weight of everyone's gaze, some curious, others critical. It wasn't just Olivia's unexpected appearance that had set the room alight. It was the question everyone was silently asking. Who were those children? Olivia was now seated in the back row, the twins at her side, playing with the toys they had brought along. Their giggles cut through the tension, but Jason's mind was too clouded to hear anything else. He tried to focus, tried to remind himself of his purpose here, to marry Mia, to start fresh, but the sense of unease, the realization that something wasn't right, grew by the second. Mia seemed to sense his distraction. Her hand tightened around his, a delicate but firm gesture of reassurance. "We need to focus on the ceremony," Mia whispered in his ear, her voice calm but laced with something else, impatience, maybe even a hint of jealousy. "Olivia is irrelevant." But was she? Was that true? Jason forced a smile, nodding quickly to Mia. But the moment of reassurance didn't last. The sudden chirp of a notification broke through the quiet, its sound so jarring that Jason instinctively glanced down at his phone. A message. It was from an unknown number. "Jason, I think it's time you knew the truth. I don't want you to be blindsided anymore. Olivia didn't just move on. She's been raising your children alone. The ones you ignored. You need to ask her about the day you left her." His stomach churned. The world seemed to tilt. He thought he had been so careful, so certain of every move he made. But now, everything felt like a lie. Before he could even process the message fully, the clink of the champagne glass cut through the air. His father had taken the microphone, smiling broadly as he raised his glass. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here today," George boomed, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. This is a very special day for my son, Jason, and his beautiful bride, Mia. But we would like to take a moment to address someone who's also very special to us, Olivia. The crowd went silent, and Jason's heart dropped into his stomach. His father, always the charmer, had a way of turning any situation into a public spectacle. Jason had hoped he would steer clear of Olivia today, but it was clear that George didn't share that same sentiment. Mia's grip on Jason's arm tightened. "Olivia," George continued, his smile too bright, too false, "we welcome you here today. You were once a part of this family, and we're pleased you could join us." Jason's blood ran cold. His father was playing to the crowd, making this into a farce. Olivia didn't flinch. She sat there with the twins, her expression calm. She wasn't there for applause. She wasn't there for pity. She was there because she had been invited. And she had something to prove. "Thank you," Olivia said softly, standing up slowly. The room fell into an uneasy silence as she stepped forward. "I'm not here to disrupt your day. But I'm here to show my children what it looks like when people stand tall, no matter the odds." Jason's pulse raced. His children? Was she really going to do this now? Here? In front of all these people? "Jason," Olivia said, her voice steady, yet there was a weight to it, an unspoken message. "You don't need to worry about me anymore. I've built my life with these two, your children, and I've built it without you." The room held its breath, and Jason's hands shook. He glanced at Mia, her face a mix of confusion and growing anger. The moment was slipping away, and Jason could feel it. The facade of his perfect life, the life he had built on the ashes of his marriage to Olivia, was starting to crack. "We don't need you to acknowledge us," Olivia continued, her gaze now locked on Jason. "But if you care about them, if you care about anything you once had, maybe you should think about the future." She turned and walked back to her seat, her twins following her like shadows. Jason's breath was shallow, his mind spinning. His father tried to recover, clearing his throat, but the damage was already done. The guests were already murmuring, exchanging looks. Some were whispering about the twins, others about Jason's past, the secrets that were now leaking out like a broken dam. Mia, for the first time that evening, looked unsure. "You need to handle this," she hissed, her voice tight. "Now." Jason wanted to scream, to storm over to Olivia and demand answers, but his feet felt rooted to the ground. His mind was racing. Twins. Children. His children. The room felt suffocating, the weight of his decisions pressing down on him. For so long, he had built this perfect life, one that excluded Olivia, one that excluded the past. But here, today, everything was unraveling. What do you think Jason will do next? Will he confront Olivia about the children, or will he try to keep his secret life hidden? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The reception was a blur after Olivia's departure from the spotlight. Jason had been standing in the corner of the room, his mind spinning, trying to regain some sense of control over his emotions. Mia had stayed by his side, her face a mask of tight-lipped frustration, but her hand never left his. The room around them seemed to shift, the chatter now filled with speculation and curiosity. It was no longer just a wedding celebration. It was the scene of a tragedy in slow motion, the pieces of a shattered life lying in plain view. "Jason, we need to talk," Mia finally said, her voice low, almost too quiet against the hum of the guests. Her grip on his arm tightened. Jason turned to face her, his heart pounding. He knew that tone, the talk. It was the kind of conversation he'd been dreading since the moment Olivia had walked in with those twins. "I don't know who you think you're fooling," Mia said, her eyes dark with suspicion. "But those kids, look like they belong to you. Don't try to deny it." "I don't know what you're talking about," Jason replied quickly, his voice tight, the lie feeling hollow even as it left his lips. He couldn't let Mia know the truth. Not now. Not here. Mia stepped closer, her gaze piercing him. "Jason, I saw the way you looked at them. Those kids are yours, aren't they? And Olivia is playing some game with you. I can see it." Jason swallowed hard. His pulse was racing. He had to make a decision. He could lie and tell Mia that she was overreacting, that it was just some coincidence. But deep down, he knew that wasn't the truth. Those children, his children, were real. And the more he thought about it, the more he realized that he didn't know the first thing about them. The truth was, he hadn't even known about their existence until tonight. "I didn't want this," Jason said, his voice soft but filled with pain. I didn't know. I didn't know she had children. Mia's eyes widened in disbelief. What do you mean, you didn't know? You left her, Jason. You cut her out of your life. What did you think she was doing all this time? I didn't know, Jason repeated, his mind struggling to process the shock of it all. I didn't know she was raising them. I thought she was just moving on, living her life. I didn't know it would be like this. Mia's face softened for a moment, her lips parting as if to say something, but the moment was interrupted by a figure entering the room. It was Olivia again. This time, she wasn't sitting in the back row or standing at the far end of the ballroom. No, she was walking directly toward him, her expression unreadable, her gaze steady. And behind her, the twins were following, clutching her hands tightly. Olivia, Jason said, his voice thick with unease. What do you want? Olivia didn't flinch at his tone, her eyes calm, composed. I think it's time we talked, she said, her voice low but firm. She glanced at Mia, who was standing at Jason's side, her posture tense. I'm sorry if I disrupted your wedding, but there are things that need to be said. Jason's heart dropped. He didn't want to confront Olivia. Not here, not now. But he knew deep down that there was no escaping it. The truth was unraveling, and he had no choice but to face it. Why are you doing this? Jason asked, his voice sharp, frustration rising in his chest. Why show up now? What's your game, Olivia? Olivia's gaze softened, just a fraction. She glanced down at the twins, who were now quietly playing with a toy car in the corner. I'm not here for revenge, Jason. I'm here because the truth needs to come out. You've spent years hiding from your past, from what you did to me. But I'm not the same person I was back then. I've rebuilt my life. And those two, she gestured to the twins, are yours. And you deserve to know them. Jason felt like the ground beneath him was slipping away. His throat tightened. I don't understand. How could I not know about them? You didn't tell me. You didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell you because I knew you didn't want to hear it, Olivia replied. Her voice was steady, but there was a sadness there, a grief that Jason hadn't expected to see. When you left me with nothing. But I never wanted your money. I never wanted anything from you but your love. But when I saw that you didn't have room for me anymore, I knew I had to raise them alone. I had no choice. Jason's mind reeled. He couldn't process it all. The truth was right in front of him, but it felt like a foreign language. His eyes flicked over to the twins, who were playing innocently, unaware of the weight of the conversation happening around them. One of the twins, a little boy with bright blue eyes, looked up at him, a smile lighting his face. Hi, Daddy, he chirped, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Jason froze, the word Daddy ringing in his ears. His breath caught in his chest. The boy. His son. His son. It was all too much. The past. The present. The future. It was all crashing down on him at once. How do you think Jason will react to this bombshell? Will he embrace his children, or will he push them away? What would you do if you were in his shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. Jason's heart thudded painfully in his chest, the world around him blurring as he tried to process what had just happened. The word Daddy echoed in his mind, over and over. He stared at the little boy, his son, the child he never knew existed, and for a moment, the room felt suffocating. His son. The boy smiled at him innocently, his eyes wide and trusting, but Jason couldn't bring himself to smile back. How was this possible? How could Olivia have kept something like this from him? Olivia, please. Jason started, his voice shaky. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you? Olivia cut him off, her eyes sharp, but not cold. I didn't tell you because you didn't give me a choice, Jason. The day you walked away, you made it clear you didn't want a family. You didn't want me. You didn't want anything to do with what we had. You were too focused on your career, too focused on your new life. Jason flinched, the words cutting deeper than he expected. Olivia was right. He had walked away, selfishly, arrogantly, believing that success would make him happy, believing that the life he built with Mia would be enough to fill the emptiness inside. But now, the emptiness he felt was something much worse. You were angry, Jason. You didn't want to be tied down, Olivia continued, her voice quieter now, but still firm. And I knew, if I told you about the children, you would have ignored them too. So I didn't. I didn't want them to grow up with the idea that their father didn't care. The pain in her voice was unmistakable. Jason's throat constricted as he realized the weight of what he had done. He had been so consumed with his own selfish pursuit of success that he had never considered the consequences of his actions. Olivia had been raising their children alone, building a life without him, and he had done nothing to stop it. Olivia. Jason whispered, his voice breaking. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant for you to have to do this alone. Olivia gave a small, bitter smile. You didn't mean for it to happen, but it did, Jason. And now you're here, at my doorstep, asking why I didn't tell you. But the truth is, I did what I had to do to survive. I didn't need your approval. I needed to protect my children. Jason's mind was spinning, and just when he thought he could begin to process everything, another voice interrupted the conversation. Mia. She stepped forward, her face flushed with anger. Is this true, Jason? She asked, her voice cold. You have children with her? With her. Jason turned to Mia, his heart sinking. This was the moment he had been dreading, the confrontation that would force him to face the truth he had been running from. Mia's eyes were wild with hurt, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. I didn't know, Jason said quickly, his voice shaky. Mia, I didn't know about the children. I swear to you, I didn't. But Mia wasn't listening. You didn't know? How could you not know? You just, decided to forget about them? She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You've been so consumed with her, Jason. So consumed with me, but you couldn't even take a second to think about what you were leaving behind. Jason opened his mouth to respond, but the words stuck in his throat. He had no defense. He had no excuse for what he had done. All the years of hiding from the truth, all the moments of pretending that everything was fine, it had all been a lie. And now Mia, the woman he had been so sure was the key to his happiness, was standing before him, furious and betrayed. I don't even know who you are anymore, Mia said, her voice cracking. The man I married, he would have never let something like this happen. He would have never hurt people this way. Jason felt the sting of her words as if they were physical blows. He wanted to explain, to make her understand, but it was too late. The damage had been done. Maybe I don't know who I am either, he whispered. Mia's face softened for a moment, but her eyes were still full of pain. I wanted to believe you were better than this, Jason. But I was wrong. Turning away from him, Mia walked out of the ballroom without another word. Jason stood there, feeling utterly lost. He had just lost Mia, the woman he thought he would spend the rest of his life with. And he had always been too late, too selfish to realize what he had in front of him. The twins were still sitting by Olivia, watching their father from a distance. His heart twisted in his chest. He couldn't take back what he had done, and now, he wasn't sure he could fix anything. But then, Olivia's voice broke through his thoughts. You need to talk to them, Jason, she said quietly, her eyes serious. You need to know them. You need to be there for them. Jason glanced at her, but his mind was too clouded to process her words. How do I even start? Olivia took a deep breath, her voice calm and steady. You start by being honest with yourself. And with them. Jason stared at her, at the twins, and at the wreckage he had caused. He was lost, but maybe, just maybe, this was his chance to rebuild, to face the past he had so desperately tried to ignore. But could he fix it? Could he make things right? Do you think Jason can rebuild his relationships with both Olivia and Mia, or has he lost them forever? What should his next move be? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Jason sat alone in the empty ballroom, the lights dimmed, casting long shadows across the polished floor. The noise of the reception was now just a distant echo, fading into silence. He had no idea how long he had been sitting there, lost in his own thoughts, but the weight of the night had crushed him. Mia was gone. He had watched her leave, her figure disappearing into the night, her departure sealing the fate of their relationship. He had tried to call after her, to reach out, but she was already gone. He knew that was it. She had finally seen him for who he truly was, the man who had abandoned his past for a dream that had never been real. And now, Olivia. Olivia was sitting at the far end of the room with the twins, watching him silently. She hadn't said a word after Mia's departure, but Jason could feel the weight of her gaze. Her expression wasn't angry. It wasn't even sad. It was simply knowing. Olivia had warned him this would happen. She had warned him that he couldn't keep running from the truth. And now the wreckage of his life was on full display. He had lost the woman he loved, and he had found out too late that he had children he had never even known existed. Jason pressed his hands to his face, rubbing his eyes as if to wake himself from a nightmare, but nothing changed. The ache in his chest was real. The guilt, the shame, the deep soul-crushing regret, all of it was flooding him now. How had he let it get this far? His phone buzzed again. Another message, but this time it wasn't from Olivia or Mia. It was from his father. Jason, I know this is a lot to handle, but you need to face the consequences of your actions. You've hurt a lot of people, son. It's time to make things right. The words stung, but they weren't wrong. His father, who had always been the one to clean up his messes, had finally given up on him. Jason had been too proud, too consumed with his own ambition, to listen to anyone. But now, he was alone. A pair of small hands suddenly touched his shoulder, breaking through his spiral of thoughts. Jason turned slowly, his heart in his throat, and saw the little boy from earlier, the one who had called him Daddy. The boy was standing there, his wide eyes filled with innocence, his small face serious. "Daddy, are you sad?" the boy asked in a soft, almost worried voice. Jason's chest tightened, and for the first time all night, tears welled up in his eyes. He had never thought of himself as someone who could break, but here he was, on the floor, crumbling under the weight of his own failures. He had never been a father before, never had the chance to be a part of his children's lives. But now, staring at the child before him, he realized how much time he had lost. He swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. "Yes, buddy. I'm sad. I'm really, really sad." The boy didn't say anything else. Instead, he just climbed into Jason's lap, settling there with a small, comforting hug. For a moment, everything else faded away. The hurt, the guilt, the shame, all of it was drowned out by the warmth of the child's embrace. But the moment didn't last. Jason knew it couldn't. Olivia stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Jason, you can't keep running from this. You can't keep pretending like it doesn't matter. The truth is here now, and so are your children. You need to decide what kind of man you want to be." Jason looked up at her, his heart a tangled mess of emotions. She wasn't angry with him. She wasn't seeking revenge. But she was demanding something from him, something he wasn't sure he could give. "I don't know how to fix this," he admitted, his voice cracking. "I don't know how to make it right." Olivia sat down beside him, her gaze softening. "No one is asking you to fix everything, Jason. But you can start by being honest. With them. With yourself." Jason looked at the twins, who were playing quietly in the corner, unaware of the storm of emotions swirling around them. He had a choice now. He could continue hiding from the truth, continue pretending that everything would just work itself out. Or he could take a hard look at his life and make the choice to face what he had neglected for so long. For a long time, he had believed that success, status, and wealth were the answers to everything. But they weren't. He had lost so much in his pursuit of those things. He had lost his family. He had lost Mia. And now, he was faced with the possibility of losing even more. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from Mia. "Jason, I need space. I don't know if we can come back from this. You've hurt me, and I need time to think about everything." Jason stared at the message, the words like a punch to his gut. His heart ached, but he knew it was deserved. He had failed her in every possible way. But still, a small part of him clung to the hope that he could make things right, if not with Mia, then with the twins. Maybe it wasn't too late for them. "I'm sorry," Jason whispered to Olivia, his voice heavy with the weight of everything he had neglected to see. Olivia didn't respond immediately. She simply nodded, her eyes filled with an understanding that cut deeper than any anger could. She knew what he was feeling. She had lived with that guilt for years. But now, it was his turn to face it. "You have to make a decision, Jason," she said quietly. "You can't keep running. Your children deserve to know you, and if you want to be a part of their lives, you need to step up. But that means making the hard choices, facing your mistakes, and letting go of the person you used to be." Jason nodded slowly. He didn't know where this road would take him. He didn't know if he could ever earn back Mia's trust, or if he could ever be the father his children deserved. But in that moment, for the first time in years, he knew he had to try. And he would. Do you think Jason is ready to face the consequences of his actions? Can he truly rebuild his relationship with his children and Mia? What would you do if you were in his position? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The morning after the wedding, Jason found himself standing outside Olivia's house, the sun barely peeking over the horizon. His heart was heavy, and the weight of his past mistakes felt more suffocating than ever. He hadn't slept much, spending most of the night replaying the events of the past few days. His mind was a whirlwind of guilt and self-loathing, but somewhere amid the confusion, a spark of clarity had begun to form. He had been running for so long, from his past, from the people he had hurt, and most importantly, from the truth about who he had become. But now, with Olivia and the twins standing as a reminder of the life he had abandoned, he knew he couldn't keep running any longer. He took a deep breath and walked up to the door, his knuckles trembling as he knocked. The door opened slowly, and there she was again, Olivia. She looked the same as she had the night before, calm, composed, but with a quiet strength in her eyes that Jason envied. "Jason," she said, her voice soft, but not unwelcoming. "I wasn't expecting you so soon." Jason's throat was tight, the weight of everything he needed to say pressing down on him. "I had to come. I can't keep pretending like everything's okay. I've made so many mistakes, and I don't know how to fix them." Olivia stepped aside, letting him in. The twins were playing in the living room, their laughter filling the house with a warmth Jason hadn't realized he had been missing. He glanced at them, his children, and felt a sharp pang in his chest. They were so innocent, so full of life. And yet, for years, he had been absent. He had been blind to the most important part of his life. "Jason, you don't have to have all the answers right now," Olivia said gently, watching him as he stared at the children. "But you do have to start somewhere. The first step is owning what you've done, and asking for the chance to do better." Jason turned to face her, his voice thick with emotion. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need to be part of their lives. I don't want to be the man who just walks away again. I want to be there for them, for you. I've spent so much time running away from my responsibilities, from my mistakes. I don't want to keep doing that." Olivia studied him for a long moment, as though weighing his sincerity. Jason could see the scars of their past reflected in her eyes, the years of hurt and betrayal she had carried with her. But there was something else there now, a flicker of hope, however small. "You have to prove it, Jason," she said quietly. "You can't just say the words. You have to show them both that you want to be part of their lives. You have to make up for the time you've lost. And that's not going to happen overnight." Jason nodded, a knot tightening in his chest. He knew this wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't enough to just show up. He had to earn their trust, earn his redemption. The little boy, the one who had called him Daddy, suddenly ran up to him, his small arms outstretched for a hug. Jason bent down, scooping him into his arms, feeling a rush of tenderness he hadn't known he was capable of. This was real. These children, his children, were real. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for you," Jason whispered, his voice shaky as he held the boy close. The words felt like a promise that he was finally ready to keep. Olivia watched him, her expression unreadable, but Jason saw the slightest shift in her demeanor. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for them after all. He stood up, the little boy still in his arms, and turned to Olivia. "I don't know what will happen between us, but I want to make things right. I want to get to know them, to be there for them. I want to do better." Olivia met his eyes, her gaze softening for the first time. "I'm not sure what that looks like yet, Jason. But it's a start. And that's all any of us can ask for." Jason smiled, the weight on his chest lifting just a little. He wasn't expecting things to be perfect. He wasn't expecting forgiveness right away. But in this moment, for the first time in years, he felt like he had a chance, a real chance, to rebuild the family he had shattered. The twins ran up to him, pulling at his hands, eager for his attention. The noise of their laughter, their joy, filled the room, and Jason realized that he wasn't alone anymore. He had a family that needed him. And he was finally ready to be the man they deserved. Do you think Jason can truly rebuild his life and relationships, or will the past always haunt him? What does it take to earn forgiveness and rebuild trust? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. The weeks following Jason's visit to Olivia's house were filled with uncertainty, but there was also a glimmer of hope. Every day he showed up, sometimes with flowers for Olivia, other times with toys for the twins, or simply an apology, no matter how small. He spent time getting to know them, learning their quirks, their fears, their favorite things. He learned that his son, Ethan, loved to draw, his tiny drawings full of imagination and color. His daughter, Lily, loved animals, particularly dogs, and would talk for hours about her dream of one day having a puppy. It wasn't easy. The walls Olivia had built around herself were high, fortified by years of hurt and betrayal. But Jason chipped away at them, one step at a time. He knew it would take more than just showing up to win back her trust. It would take consistency, patience, and most of all, time. But there was a part of him that still felt lost, still felt like he had failed everyone, including himself. He had tried so hard to move forward, but his past, the mistakes he had made, seemed to follow him like a shadow, no matter how brightly he tried to shine. One night, after another difficult day of trying to rebuild, Jason found himself standing outside a small familiar cafe, one he used to visit regularly with Mia. It had always been their spot, the place where they had shared their hopes, their fears, their dreams. But now, standing in front of it alone, the memories only brought him pain. He had hoped to have a moment of clarity, to figure out how to move forward in his relationship with Mia, but the more he thought about it, the more he realized how impossible it seemed. She had already told him that she needed space, and no matter how much he wanted to fix things, it wasn't something he could control. He could try, but he couldn't undo the damage. He had pushed her away in his selfish pursuit of something that didn't matter, something that wasn't worth it. Suddenly, a familiar voice called out to him from behind. "Jason." He turned, and there she was, Mia. She looked just as beautiful as ever, but the sadness in her eyes was unmistakable. She was standing at a distance, her arms crossed over her chest, her posture tense. Jason's heart clenched. This wasn't just a casual conversation. He could feel it in the air, the weight of their past, the weight of everything unsaid between them. "Mia," Jason said, his voice hoarse. He wanted to run to her, to tell her everything, but he knew that wasn't the answer. Not anymore. Mia took a deep breath, glancing away briefly before meeting his eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, Jason. And I'm not sure what to feel anymore." Jason felt a pang in his chest. He knew exactly what she meant. He had hurt her, broken her trust in ways that couldn't be fixed overnight. "I never meant to hurt you, Mia," Jason said, his voice raw with emotion. "But I did. And for that, I'm sorry. I know that words don't mean much after everything, but I need you to know that I will do whatever it takes to make things right. I can't change the past, but I want to show you that I've changed, that I'm not the man who left you behind." Mia looked at him for a long moment, her eyes searching his face as if trying to find the man she once knew, the man she had loved. "I wanted to believe in you, Jason. I really did. But I can't keep pretending that it doesn't hurt. I can't keep pretending that everything is fine." Jason took a step forward, his heart aching. "I don't expect you to forgive me right now, Mia. I don't expect you to forget what I've done. But I need you to know that I'm not the same man I was when I left you. I'm trying to be better. For you. For me. For the kids." Mia's expression softened, but there was still a sadness in her eyes. "I don't know, Jason. I really don't." For a moment, everything felt suspended in time. Jason wanted to say more, to convince her that he had changed, but the truth was that Mia was right. He couldn't just fix everything with words. He had to show her through actions, through consistency, through proving that he was no longer the selfish blind man he had once been. And as much as he wanted to fight for their relationship, he realized, finally, that he couldn't force it. If Mia needed space, if she needed time, he had to give that to her. He couldn't rush her healing. He couldn't rush their future. But he could be there for her, for the twins, for everyone who mattered, in his own way. "I'll give you the space you need," Jason said quietly. "But I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here when you're ready." Mia nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't know what the future holds, Jason. But maybe there's a chance for us. But you're right. We can't rush it." Jason nodded, his heart heavy but full of a quiet hope. This wasn't the ending he had imagined, but it was an honest one. He had no control over what would happen between them, but for the first time in a long time, he had a sense of peace. He had done everything he could to make things right, and now, it was up to time to heal the wounds. And maybe, just maybe, he could build something real again, with Mia, with Olivia, and most importantly, with his children. Do you think Mia and Jason can find their way back to each other, or is their relationship beyond repair? Can true forgiveness ever be achieved, or is it just about learning to move forward? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Weeks passed, and Jason's life slowly started to take on a new rhythm. The mornings were filled with the laughter of his children, the afternoons spent playing games, reading stories, and getting to know them in ways he never thought possible. The bond that had once seemed so far out of reach began to take root, slowly but surely. Ethan, his son, had drawn him a picture of the two of them holding hands, his small fingers clutching crayons with such intent that it brought Jason to tears the first time he saw it. "That's you and me, Daddy," Ethan had said proudly. "We're together." And Lily, sweet, curious Lily, had a love for animals, so much so that Jason found himself making plans for a visit to the animal shelter, just so she could pet every dog there. These were the moments that mattered. This was the family he had missed, the family he had almost thrown away. Olivia had kept her distance, but in the days that followed, Jason could sense that something had changed between them. There were moments when she allowed herself to show a little bit of vulnerability, when she let down her guard just enough for him to see the pain she had carried for so long. And Jason was patient. He wasn't going to rush anything, not this time. He knew he had to earn her trust, one small step at a time. And then there was Mia. It had been weeks since their conversation at the cafe. Since that day, they hadn't spoken much. Mia had requested space, and Jason gave her exactly that. He didn't try to push her, didn't try to force any kind of closure. He had hurt her, and now he had to let her heal in her own time. But then one day, as Jason was picking up the twins from Olivia's house, he found a message waiting for him on his phone. "I'm ready to talk." Jason's heart skipped a beat. It was from Mia. He didn't hesitate. He immediately sent her a message back, asking if they could meet. The waiting was agonizing, but he knew that it was time for them to finally have the conversation they had been putting off. The one that would determine where they stood, where they could stand, in the aftermath of everything. When they met at the same cafe where they had shared so many memories, the air between them was thick with unspoken words. Jason's palms were sweating, his heart pounding in his chest. This wasn't just about rekindling their relationship. This was about truth, about being honest with each other, even when it hurt. Mia arrived, looking more composed than he had expected. There was a quiet sadness in her eyes, but it was accompanied by something else, a flicker of hope perhaps, or a willingness to try. Jason stood up as she approached, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I can ever fix what I did, Mia," Jason began, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I know I can't erase the past, but I want you to know that I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. For you, for us, and for everything we lost." Mia sat down across from him, her gaze steady but searching. "I've thought about this a lot, Jason," she said, her voice soft. "I won't lie. What you did hurt me more than I can put into words. But I can't pretend that it hasn't hurt to be without you too. We had something real, Jason, and I think part of me wanted to believe that you could change. But I also had to protect myself, because I wasn't sure if I could trust you again." Jason nodded, his heart heavy with understanding. "I don't expect you to just forgive me. I don't even know if forgiveness is something you're ready to give. But I've changed, Mia. I can't undo what I did, but I've learned from it. And I know that the person I want to be, the person I will be, is someone who deserves your trust." Mia's eyes softened. For a long moment, she said nothing, her gaze focused on her hands. Then she looked up at him, a hesitant but genuine smile tugging at her lips. "I'm not ready to say I forgive you, Jason. Not yet," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "But I do believe you. I believe that you're trying. And I'm willing to try too. I don't know what the future holds, but maybe we can figure it out. Together." Jason's heart surged with relief, the tight knot in his chest beginning to loosen. It wasn't a perfect resolution. It wasn't an immediate fix to everything. But it was something. A chance. A starting point. As they stood to leave, Jason caught her hand, gently squeezing it. "Thank you, Mia. I promise, I'm going to prove to you that I'm worth it. That we can still be a family, even if it looks different than before." Mia nodded, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I hope so, Jason. I really do. As the weeks turned into months, Jason's life began to settle into a new normal. His relationship with Mia didn't blossom overnight, but it grew, little by little. They started to rebuild the friendship they had lost, the trust they had almost destroyed. Slowly but surely, they began to find their way back to each other, though this time, with a deeper understanding of what it meant to truly love and forgive. Jason continued to spend time with Ethan and Lily, and Olivia, though still distant, seemed to appreciate the effort he was making. She never stopped being a mother to their children, but there was a quiet respect that had begun to form between them, a recognition that they had both played a part in creating the life they were now sharing. And as Jason stood on the balcony one evening, watching the sunset with the twins at his side, he realized something profound. His life wasn't perfect. It wasn't the life he had once imagined, full of accolades and corporate victories. But it was real. It was full of love, of second chances, of growth. For the first time in years, he felt at peace.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.